Still hot off the press from transportation. This is AB 904. Members should have an analysis.
Thank you, members. We're halfway through here, at least with me. Let me just again thank the committee staff for working with us on this bill. I am still committed to working with the committee on this bill as it moves forward, should it move forward, to address any remaining issues. But I hope that today's conversation will alleviate some of those concerns. AB 904 would create the Clean Used Vehicle Rebate Project that would increase access to clean vehicles for Californians. Specifically, the bill would provide an incentive for low to middle income Californians who cannot afford a new vehicle to purchase a clean used vehicle. Folks would be eligible to receive a rebate of up to $1,800 for the purchase of a clean used vehicle, or it could be used for a replacement battery, battery warranty, or an extended warranty. Colleagues, this is a bill that is something that we in our office were, again, there's a theme with all of our bills here, and the theme is really equity. It's how do we use the funding that is currently available and will be available in the future to address needs in places like the Central Valley. The challenge, I think, with this bill is that, and the concern that's been raised by numerous folks, members in both the Assembly and the Senate, and something that I thought about too, as we were cooking this bill up, is that we are essentially subsidizing the same vehicle twice. What we're saying is we're subsidizing the vehicle when it's brand new, and then when that car is no longer being used by that individual and it goes on the secondary market, we are now asking you and taxpayers to say, well, now we want to subsidize that vehicle again to keep it on the road, but target it to those individuals who can't afford these vehicles. And I think from a policy perspective, I think that can be tough to get past. The way I was able to talk myself past that is the fact that, well, two things. One, we believe that with the number of leases that will be coming up, there will be a very large secondary market for used clean vehicles. And that's the kind of market that my constituents live in. That's the kind of market that I represent. Having said that, they're still going to be more expensive than buying sort of your traditional vehicle that's maybe 10 or 15 years older. And so what we're trying to do is provide an incentive so that when that secondary market is robust, which again we think is going to be another 2 to 3 years, that people will have the incentives to make a different choice. And so that's what AB 904 is trying to do. We think that this will be a good incentive for constituents who live in places like the Central Valley to make different decisions as they look to purchase vehicles in the future, and respectfully ask for your aye vote.
So all the members know, yesterday in transportation, you took amendments that reduced the rebate from $2,500 to $1,800.
Right. Correct.
So that's what's before us.
Correct.
And then, or you could use it for a replacement value battery, right, or a battery warranty.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, what we didn't want to do is get an individual into a car that could be very expensive to repair. So that's why we included the battery or battery warranty to protect from that.
Okay. First witness.
Mr. Chairman and members, Bill McGavin with the Coalition for Clean Air in support. Last year, we and our colleagues in the Charge Ahead California campaign, many of whom you'll also hear from today, sponsored Senator De Leon's SB 1275. And this bill has the same goal and is very complementary to that effort, because what we were aiming for there is to make the cleanest vehicles accessible to all Californians. That we think that electric vehicles should be not just for the Tesla drivers in Malibu and Marin, and I say that with great affection for Tesla, Malibu, and Marin, but should also be accessible to working class folks in Stockton and Southgate and around the state. And so we put a number of programs in there to try to broaden access to electric vehicles. And that's exactly what this bill would try to do. Now, your analysis rightly points out that there are a number of existing programs, but what Mr. Perea is doing here is filling a gap, because he is making the rebates available to people buying a used vehicle when they do not have an existing clunker to turn in. So we have a program, a great program, where people can trade in a polluting vehicle and get into a much cleaner, newer one. But this is for people who are not in that category. So we support this. We think it's very demonstrated that people in disadvantaged communities are eager to get into the cleanest vehicles. And we know that those vehicles are good for our environment. The analysis raises the question of broader impacts on the environment for electric vehicles, and it's always a good idea to look at life cycle emissions. But what's not in your analysis is the fact that that question has been conclusively answered in California, because our electric grid is clean and getting cleaner all the time. So when you fuel your electric vehicle or plug-in hybrid with California electricity, you are definitely helping to clean up the air and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And this committee has many times supported programs that expand our access to electric vehicles, and we ask you to do that again today.
Next.
All right. Good morning, Chairman Wachowski and respected members of the committee. I'm Dave Pusey on behalf of NRDC, speaking in behalf of AB 904. I guess I'll just echo a lot of Bill's comments that have already been said, and speak a little bit more broadly. We know California is home to some of the most polluted regions in the country. Transportation sector accounts for about 40% of our state's greenhouse gas emissions, and unfortunately, disadvantaged communities, including many in the members' district, are quite often disproportionately impacted by this pollution. As a result, these communities suffer from higher rates of asthma and other serious ailments, including premature deaths. In fact, we know on average Californians are nearly twice as likely to die prematurely from traffic pollution as from car accidents. And of course, ideally, we'd like to tackle this problem by replacing many of the dirty, low-mileage vehicles in these regions with zero-emission vehicles. But as has been said, this is realistically out of reach by many in his region. So the Clean Reused Vehicle Rebate Project that would be established by AB 904 will help Californians from disadvantaged communities with low to moderate incomes gain greater access to used zero-emission hybrid vehicles. This will not only benefit their health, but also their pocketbook. Right now, a lot of low-income families in these disadvantaged communities end up spending a good portion of their limited income on fuel, often having to drive long distances and inefficient gas guzzlers. However, if AB 904 helps them upgrade to an efficient, clean energy vehicle, the electricity they'll use to meet their daily driving needs would be the cost equivalent of about $1 per gallon of gasoline. And if they need to switch to hybrid mode for longer trips, they'll still enjoy much-needed savings on gasoline because of the greater fuel economy that they would have in these used efficient vehicles. So this bill both offers economic and health benefits for those that need it most. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Bonnie Holmes-Jen with the American Lung Association in California, and we believe that all communities should be able to participate in clean air solutions. We've been working hard to accelerate the transition to zero-emission vehicles. It's a critical clean air greenhouse gas strategy. We support this bill. We realize there are several other programs out there, and that these programs in this bill need to be well coordinated with the other incentive programs on the books. We think that can be done, and we believe that more needs to be done to help low-income consumers, so we are supporting this bill, ask you to move it forward.
Others in support of AB 904.
Matt Klopfenstein on behalf of the Union of Concerned Scientists in support.
Okay.
Sylvia Solisha on behalf of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District in support.
Quentin Foster on behalf of the California Environmental Justice Alliance in support.
Mr. Chair, Dan Jacobson, Environment California, support.
Tom Knox of Valley Clean Air Now in support.
Okay. Opposition to AB 904? We did not receive any opposition. All right, let's bring it back to the members. Questions?
Just a brief comment.
Ms. Jackson.
I think this is a great idea. As someone who has a Prius with 188,000 miles on it, I'm told every day to watch out. The batteries only expected to last for 150,000 miles. The cost of a new battery actually is more than the value of the car that it's worth. That being said, the car does great, and if we're talking about trying to reduce emissions in your community assembly member, I think this is a great idea, and the flexibility it provides, I think, is very helpful. I did want to say, though, as I've been sitting here thinking of your closing in the last bill, I hope that there isn't a belief that the people sitting on this dais are not sensitive to the problems that exist in your community. Because I know that as long as I've been here, I have been quite concerned. Children are children, and they're all our children. So I just wanted to express my hope that we are not sort of balkanizing the state of California by saying that we don't care about what goes on in the areas represented by our colleagues. I don't think that's true. And you've certainly been very committed to your community, and I want to applaud you for that. But also, as I look around this room, we've had many discussions about air quality issues, about environmental concerns related to water and so forth throughout the state and including your district. And from my perspective, my concern is not that your community doesn't count. I just, as far as the approach that was being taken on that measure, that was my objection. So I appreciate this effort. I appreciate what you're doing for your community. I hope they appreciated it as well. And I'm happy to move this bill.
We have a
Thank you,
motion.
Senator. And I would love to take you out for a cup of coffee one day just to have a conversation.
All things Fresno. Let's go to Senator Leno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll also be supporting the bill today. Just a couple questions, though. And I know that there had been made reference to the work of Senator DeLeon and others. Had you thought of incorporating this into an existing program as opposed to creating a new one? Is there any utility in doing that, or how did you get to where you are?
I haven't. Not necessarily opposed to that idea as long as we're getting the same outcome. How I came to the conclusion of starting a new program is the same way I came to the conclusion on the bill before that and the first bill I presented, is this idea of bringing equity into the programs that we have. And so the question is, do we bring equity within existing programs, or can we create equity through new programs? And if you look at the last three bills that I've presented, that's really the theme of what I'm trying to do here is how do I make these environmental policies relevant to the working poor in rural California? And that's what's so challenging about the sort of the big picture debate that we're having is somebody living in, and again, somebody who's low income, living in either San Francisco or urban Los Angeles has a very different experience than somebody who's making that same amount of money living in Five Points, California, where there's one stop sign in the community, where you have communities that have been developed because 3 or 4 dairies sort of came to being, and now all of a sudden we had a community of folks. So that's what I'm trying to do with all of these different proposals is make these policies and these funding decisions equitable and relevant to everybody out there, regardless of where you live. And so we are, if we can achieve the same outcome through within an existing program, I'm certainly open to that. But I think, at least when it comes to this particular measure, we went the route of creating a new program because we believe we're filling a gap that currently needs to be filled. So
Very good. And this may be a more appropriate question for its next committee, the
Sure.
Appropriations Committee, but do we have an identified funding source for the proposed program?
I believe it's the existing funding source.
It would be.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Anything else, Senator, that you or Assemblymember, that you'd like to add?
Just respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay. I'm going to stay off this bill because, as pointed out in the analysis, everybody vote their conscience. There is a vote. There is a motion to pass to appropriations. Please call the roll.
Item 19, AB 904 by Assemblymember Perea. The motion is due pass and refer to Committee on Appropriations. Senators Wieckowski,
Not voting.
Gaines, Bates, Hill.
Aye.
Hill, aye. Jackson.
Aye.
Jackson, aye. Leno.
Aye.
Leno, aye. Pavley. 3-0.
We'll keep that matter on hold. And your last bill?
Last one.
Is item number 26, members 1176.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to present AB 1176, and I will be taking the committee's amendments. AB 1176 would provide California's most impacted and disadvantaged communities with reasonable and cost-effective opportunities to participate in the state's greenhouse gas emissions reduction strategies. This bill would ensure low-income communities have access to low-carbon fueling infrastructure, such as biodiesel and renewable diesel, that would provide immediate, measurable reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution. Medium and heavy-duty diesel vehicles operating on conventional diesel fuel are significant contributors to emissions from GHGs and criteria pollutants. However, the majority of diesel vehicles on the state's roads today can immediately reduce their emissions of GHGs, NOx, and particulate matter by using low-carbon alternative and renewable biomass-based diesel fuels. Ensuring a sufficient source of low-carbon diesel infrastructure is available would provide immediate benefits in health and the environment. Focusing targeted investments on low-carbon fuel infrastructure in disadvantaged communities is a highly cost-effective and environmentally beneficial way to provide immediate and substantial reductions of GHG emissions to consumers and residents living in these areas of California. Without this bill, our disadvantaged communities will continue to lack clean fuel alternatives, slowing down successful deployment of low-carbon fuels. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Very good. First witness.
Mr. Chair and Committee, Chris Maurer on behalf of Propel Fuels in strong support of this bill. And I think Assemblyman Perea said it very well in his remarks. I mean, this bill would provide a wonderful, cost-effective option for individuals living in disadvantaged communities in areas of just horrible air quality, as we all know. Renewable diesel fuels provide significant GHG reductions as well as co-benefits with regards to NOx and PM reductions as well. So it's a cost-effective option. It's a fuel that's a drop-in fuel. Essentially, you've got hundreds of thousands of diesel vehicles out there now that can use this fuel. Don't require any retrofits or doohickeys or anything like that. It's a cost-effective option. It's a way for low-income, moderate-income drivers in California to proactively participate in the low-carbon future. We think this is a great bill, and we applaud the Assemblyman for his author of it. Urge an aye vote.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Tom Folks. I am here on behalf of Propel. I'm here primarily as a technical witness to address emissions issues and a couple of others. One of the points that I wanted to make to everybody is that there has been some dialogue about who makes the fuel and who benefits from the bill and so forth. I wanted just to provide some information to your committee so that you know that the makers of renewable diesel fuel include Neste, which imports 14% of the compliant low-carbon fuel into California right now. FAME biodiesel, which is traditional biodiesel, represents 12% of all LCFS-compliant fuel coming into California. Also, makers of renewable diesel include Renewable Energy Group, Paramount Petroleum from Bakersfield, Amyris, which is South San Francisco, Solzyme, another California company, and Altair from Michigan. One of the eligible traditional FAME biodiesels that would benefit from this bill includes Agron Bioenergy from Watsonville. They make a low-NOx FAME biodiesel. They are two distinct chemistries, two distinct types of fuels. Both operate from the same feedstock, but one, renewable diesel, is hydrotreated and cracked. It's treated like a petroleum at the refinery. It meets ASTM D975 specifications, which is carb diesel. FAME biodiesel, in this instance, the low NOx FAME, yes.
Is the cracking, does that help reduce the NOx? Is that the chemical activity, or am I missing it?
Not really. In a way, yes, but it gets into this great chemistry sort of discussion that I think offline I'd be happy to provide just some information about. But when you hydrotreat an oil of any kind, whether it's a vegetable oil or a petroleum-based oil, you are reducing the NOx properties out of it. If you take a look at the renewable diesel fuel that comes out of a refinery, it comes out with an inherently less NOx property, 9% less NOx than petroleum baseline. Whereas some FAME biodiesels, which is the traditional biodiesels, has slightly increased NOx properties when it comes out of its batch making processes. So the point is, renewable diesel fuel has 70% less carbon content, and it has 9% less NOx than traditional carb diesel. But renewable diesel and carb diesel are both ASTM 975 spec. FAME biodiesel is ASTM 6751, two distinct types of chemistries, and there is a maker in California of FAME that would be eligible for funding under this bill, or I should say would be able to provide fuel to eligible applicants for this fuel. So then we get into who sells this stuff. Right now, Propel obviously sells the stuff, and Golden Gate Fuels out of the Bay Area would also be eligible for funding under this bill. So it isn't necessarily just limited to just one maker. If somebody else wants to get into the business of selling renewable fuels, renewable diesel fuel, they'd be eligible for funding too. Just wanted to clarify those points for you. Last point, and that is there are a lot of legacy diesel products on the road in California today. Most of the heavy-duty engines that meet the 2010 emissions specifications have already reduced their NOx output by more than 90%. Those represent, on the heavy-duty side, less than 20% of the overall heavy-duty vehicle fleet in California. Just organic fleet turnover is going to create a whole great reduction in NOx over time. That's on the heavy-duty side. That will probably take until 2023, according to the Air Resources Board, in its analysis of coming up with the alternative diesel fuel rule, which limits concentrations of FAME biodiesel to 5% blends beginning in 2018. On the light-duty side, every vehicle that came out under LEV 2, the tailpipe emissions standard, beginning in the 2008 model year, also has comparable NOx output as a regular gasoline vehicle. They have to, all of them have to meet LEV 2. The point that I'm trying to make is today, right now, if a worker drives a work truck that's a diesel, he can go to a station, get renewable diesel fuel, and immediately be producing 9% less NOx than he would be or she would be using standard petroleum diesel. So this provides an on-ramp for people who are working today who can start participating in the low-carbon economy, the low-carbon transportation system. Some of the more exotic technologies that are outlined in the ARB's low-carbon investment plan, those are great. Nobody's knocking that. But those will take some time to mature. They'll take some time to ripen and get to market. This bill provides immediate access for people, for working folks, who can just go put the nozzle in the vehicle and you're off and running. Thank you.
Thank you. Others in support of this measure?
Bill McGavin with the Coalition for Clean Air in support of AB 1176. Petroleum diesel exhaust is a plague on the health of our communities, especially those that are near freeways, and also a significant contributor to climate change, both through carbon dioxide and through black carbon, one of the most powerful of the short-lived climate pollutants. And these low-carbon diesels provide immediate reductions in emissions. So we urge you to vote yes.
Okay. Others in support of AB 1176?
Sylvia Solisha on behalf of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. We believe this will incentivize a low-carbon fuel infrastructure and bring these vehicles to the valley. Thank you.
Good morning. Graham Noyes of the Low Carbon Fuels Coalition in strong support of this bill. In brief response to question number 2 on the comments there, do we need another program? We absolutely do need a program in this area. These kinds of low-carbon fuels on the heavy-duty side are delivering emission reductions. Right now, they've delivered the large majority of the 10 million metric tons of reduction under the low-carbon fuel program. And this kind of infrastructure program that Assemblymember Perea is putting forth is exactly what the industry needs to deliver more of those reductions. None of the existing programs do that. Thank you.
Excellent. Opposition to AB 1176? Okay, let's bring it back to the committee. There's a motion by Senator Leno. Discussion. As amended, I have no problems with the bill. Please close.
Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay, call the roll.
Item 26, AB 1176 by Assemblymember Perea. The motion is due pass as amended and referred to Committee on Appropriations. Senators Wykowski?
Aye.
Wykowski, aye. Gaines? Bates? Aye. Bates, aye. Hill?
Aye.
Hill, aye. Jackson? Aye. Jackson, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Pavley? 5-0.
Okay, 5-0. We'll keep that matter on hold. Enjoy the rest of your morning. Item number 3, Assemblymember Quirk, AB 33. Too bad Senator Pavley's not here, but what the heck?
She's in government.
Yeah. Good morning, Assemblymember.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and my senator, and all senators here this morning. It's just good to see you all. I'd like to first start by accepting the committee amendment contained on page 7 of the analysis to refer broadly to statewide greenhouse gas emission limits. That's an excellent addition to the bill. Assembly Bill 33 would establish the Energy Sector Emissions Reduction Advisory Council and charge it with analyzing various strategies that could be implemented to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the electricity sector. The council would be comprised of the California Energy Commission, the California Public Utilities Commission, the California Independent System Operator, the State Water Resources Control Board, and the California Air Resources Board. The council would be required to analyze the cost and overall benefits to the state associated with greenhouse gas emissions reduction and renewable energy grid integration strategies using the best available economic models and analytical tools. With many of these entities already meeting on an ad hoc basis, AB 33 would increase coordination, give specific direction to the council, and ensure that these agencies take into account both cost effectiveness and technical feasibility when conducting their analysis. Some of these strategies that the council will analyze include increasing the role of demand response, retrofitting existing electrical generation facilities to increase operational flexibility, deepening regional coordination in the Western Interconnection, increasing energy storage, including pumped hydroelectric storage, and increasing energy efficiency, along with several others. AB 33 would require the council to complete its work on a time frame established in consultation with the California Air Resources Board after allowing for public comment so that the council's efforts could be offered as recommendations for including in the board's next scoping plan. AB 33 enjoys no opposition, and while the analysis only notes support from the Energy Storage Alliance and the California Manufacturers and Technology Association, the bill is also supported by the Environmental Defense Fund, Calpine Corporation, the U.S. Green Building Council, and the Large Scale Solar Association. With me to testify are Mark Fenster, Brian Early on behalf of the Environmental Defense Fund, and I know I've got Cassandra Goff over here on behalf of Calpine.
Mr. Chair, members, Brian Early on behalf of Environmental Defense Fund. Sorry for the swap out there last minute. First off, I'd like to thank Mr. Quirk for his leadership on this issue over the years. AB 33 is a common sense bill that will ensure that we squeeze the maximum amount of greenhouse gases out of the electrical sector in a way that is cost effective. That is one of the great things about the techniques and processes that this council will be highlighting, is that while they also reduce greenhouse gases, they do so in a way that is extremely cost effective. As Mr. Quirk noted, various agencies are already sort of thinking through how these technologies fit into the scoping plan, and we think AB 33 will do a good service in terms of bringing this into one coordinated body. So very much appreciate the bill and are in strong support. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Cassandra Goff with Calpine Corporation. Calpine was founded in San Jose, California over 30 years ago. We provide 10% of the state's generation from our fleet of clean, flexible natural gas facilities and our geothermal facilities in Lake and Sonoma County. We're very supportive of this bill. As we move forward with more renewables and reducing our greenhouse gases, the issues associated with that have been well documented, the issues being one of overgeneration and reliability and affordability. And this bill requires the agencies to work together to come up with a set of plans on how we can most cost effectively reduce emissions in the electric sector, which is responsible for 20% of the state's current emissions, while maintaining reliability in an affordable way and also minimizing overgeneration. And I know you've all heard a lot about that as you've heard the number of RPS bills. So you took the words out of my mouth, Brian. Common sense approach. Calpine is very supportive and here to answer any questions you might have.
Others in support of AB 33, please come forward.
Jamie Miner, representing the Large Scale Solar Association, in support.
Michael Shaw, California Manufacturers and Technology Association, in support.
Good morning, Carrie Timmer, Sierra Business Council in Truckee, in support, especially if the analysis also applies to biomass and forestry. Thank you.
Opposition to AB 33? All right, let's bring it back to the committee. Anybody have a common sense question of the author? Seeing none? Seeing no discussion, Mr. Quirk, you may close.
I request your aye vote.
Chair's recommendations do pass as amended. There's one amendment, right? Yeah, there's one amendment. There's a motion by Senator Leno. Let's call the roll.
Item 3, AB 33 by Assemblymember Quirk. The motion is do pass as amended. Refer to Committee on Appropriations. Senators Wieckowski?
Aye.
Wieckowski, aye. Gaines? Bates? Aye. Bates, aye. Hill?
Aye.
Hill, aye. Jackson? Aye. Jackson, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Pavley?
Okay. 5-0. We'll keep that on call. You have another matter, item number 15, members.